Hi, welcome back to the Mob Mentality Show. My name is Austin Chadwick, and co-host is Chris Lucian. And today we're going to talk about the board we have of companies that mob program or do ensemble programming or teaming. And to kick us off, I'll pass it over to Chris, who can kind of tell the origin story that started on his blog and then led to this board. So, yeah, why did you start documenting such a thing, Chris? What were your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think well, part of it started with, obviously we just started mobbing and then talking about mobbing and then hearing about other companies that have done, that have mobbed or ensembled or whatever you want to call it. And so on my blog, I just kind of started keeping track. And I don't know if this came before or after the software professional resources. But in a previous episode, we had gone over the software professional resources Trello board. And it was just and it's similar to that now in that it's a Trello board. But before it wasn't a Trello board, it was just like a list on my blog. And I was like, it's easier to maintain like a shared Trello and then just keep adding stuff. So one principle I wanted to keep in mind was I wanted people to have a place to go to where they can say like, oh, look, a lot of other companies are doing this, right? So like that was kind of maybe a sort of resource that I wanted to be available to people. And so kind of one guiding principle is I always wanted there to either be a bit of social media that would that somebody had posted saying that they had mobbed, or sometimes people just reach out to me directly and said, hey, please add me to the list. And so generally we try and prefer and we take a screenshot and put it in there. But then I think after I'd been doing that for a while, Austin, you added a list of coaches as well.
Yeah. So, yeah, it became useful, and I think at least for me, when you took the blog to the board, yeah, it made it easier to edit and add things. So that worked right away, quite quickly for me to contribute. Similarly with the software professional resources, and so it kind of became like a fun hobby, but it also turned out to be useful because it was just cool to be like, oh wow, there's a team over in this country doing mobbing, and they're excited about it, and they would mention it on social media, or we'd hear about it at a conference or something, and so it was just kind of fun to just track and see kind of like the practice, span the globe in different ways, and span different types of companies from startups to big companies to moderate sized companies to organizations to government entities. And in the same kind of way, it was fun to see it kind of see it all in one place, the spread amongst coaches.
Mm.
So obviously Woody Zool and people like Llewellyn and others. And what's funny is it's almost like the board. We almost need like a Python automation for every guest who's a coach to auto add them to the board as a coach.
Right. Yeah.
um, at least most of the time, a guest of our show is often a
or
coach
or
who,
people that talk about their company or whatever. But
yeah,
yeah, and again, like I think,
yeah,
one thing I really wanted was that somebody mentioned that they at the company was doing it
right,
publicly, right?
yeah,
And sometimes we do company mention, sometimes we don't. But it was kind of it's
yeah,
really cool because looking over the board, you're like, wow, this and that.
yeah,
And
exactly. Yep. And so to see the coaches who are out there, which is kind of like, it's fun, the getting into the uses of it. It was people are like, I really want to mob repair, but I can't find places that do it, And so it's like, well, here's some places.
right,
Or we're looking for some training. What would you recommend? Like, well, this board would be one of the first places I go to because, if they're a good person and they get good practices, mobbing will help that spread if they come and coach, in my
yeah,
opinion. And so it just kind of became like instead of like you say, Chris, to automate the manual steps for something you say or do, having a board like this kind of automates this, the response to questions like that, like, oh, go here to find other companies that mob, or go here to find coaches that mob, or go here to find other professors out in academia who use this to help teach students, and that kind of thing. And so I think partially it was fun, just kind of interesting to track. And then it's also quite useful and saves keystrokes when
Yeah.
talking about it with others. So
Well, yeah, it's like I can't count the number of times that I've had people ask, like, well, are there any academic studies on mobbing or whatever? And
yeah.
so that was kind of a natural extension of all of this in the end there. So, but yeah, super cool. I'd recommend anybody check it out and just browse through there and see if you know somebody who didn't expect already does.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Definitely a call to action. So yeah, definitely the boards are work in progress, and they the updates come in spurts. But if there's anything, we'll post a link in the show notes that you see missing, or you want to be like, hey, we want to be spotlighted on there. We're not on there. Just let us know. We'd love to turn that up and add you onto the board. The other thing I'll highlight is definitely not committing the logical fallacy that, like, oh, look, smart people or big companies do it, therefore you should do it. You know what I mean? Like this kind of irrational appeal to authority. But I think there is something to it in that helps with just sharing. Not that like one person in one really rare, wild context found mobbing useful that had these results. So, in the spirit of just sharing, we're not saying universally it'll work because it's worked at these places, even if the names of some of these places are big. I think it does grant evidence to the just sharing claim that, hey, look, it has worked well for some people, and here are their contexts. Is your context similar or different to these people? Maybe go talk to them or something like that, right? And so, what I like about it when I see it is you'll see pure e-commerce on there. You'll see places to similar to that you and I work in, which it includes IoT. So it's not like, oh, this is just only for pure software development, right? You see government entities in there. You see well-known large companies in there.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I think there's something to be said to that in regards to just sharing.
Yeah, fintech, automotive,
Yes,
it's like all over the place, right?
right,
Yeah,
right. Yeah, exactly. In person, remote. Yeah, it just kind of shows the diversity of spheres. Yep, yep. But yeah, any closing thoughts, Chris, before we shut this one down?
yeah, no, again, it's, especially if you have like a blog out there or time lapse video or anything like that, that's even like especially helpful because then it's like, hey, this is, something that is there and is real and it's, yeah, can be really helpful. So, appreciate all everybody's contributions and, chat with us about it in the comments too.
Thanks, everybody. Mob on and have a good one.
Yeah.
Adios.
Bye, everyone.